My name is Charlotte Emerson, and if I had known what I was walking into when I married Lucas Bennett, I might have worn armor instead of a white dress. He was soft-spoken, kind in the way quiet men can be, and after the chaos I'd grown up in, he felt like safety. We were broke, sure, but we were in love, or so I believed. That illusion shattered the moment I met his mother, Margot Bennett. Her handshake was icy, her hug rigid, and though she smiled, her eyes told a different story. At our wedding, she wore deep navy, but it felt like morning black. I thought maybe she was grieving her son's independence. I was wrong. She was grieving her control. Margot didn't hate me for who I was. She hated me for what I wasn't: wealthy, connected, well-bred. I was a barista by day and a math tutor by night, scraping by. In her eyes, I wasn't a partner. I was a parasite. Still, I stayed silent. I played nice. But from that very first dinner, where she flinched when I laughed too loud, I knew this wasn't going to be a marriage. It was going to be war, and no one warned me. It was a Tuesday morning when everything inside me quietly broke. I was setting the breakfast table like I always did, mugs lined up, toast buttered just right, eggs warm. Margot, in her silk robe, sat perched on the velvet armchair like she owned the air in the room. Lucas sat across from her, scrolling through his phone, sipping his coffee like the scene was perfectly normal. I placed a plate in front of him. Then it happened. Without even looking at me, Margot flipped a page in her magazine, sighed dramatically, and said in the coldest, most casual tone, "You're just a housemaid playing dress-up. A wife in title only. No raised voice. No drama. Just a statement, like she was commenting on the weather." I froze. My hand trembled slightly, but I didn't let the plate drop. The walls suddenly felt closer, the air heavier. I looked to Lucas, my husband, my supposed protector. He didn't flinch. Just kept chewing. Crumbs stuck to his lips. He didn't even lift his eyes. No defense. No words. Just silence. That's when something inside me fractured. But not in the way Margot hoped. I smiled, numb, hollow, and excused myself. I walked calmly to the bathroom, shut the door, and collapsed onto the cold tile floor. The sobs came hard. They weren't just about her words, they were about his silence. Because betrayal doesn't always arrive with loud voices and slammed doors. Sometimes, it comes in the form of not saying anything at all. I curled up on the floor, gasping, shaking. And then, I looked up. There was a mirror above the sink. What I saw wasn't weakness. It wasn't failure. It was someone undervalued. Someone underestimated. I stood up, wiped my face, and whispered to myself, "You'll regret this, Margot. One day, you'll wish you never opened your mouth." That was the moment I stopped waiting to be saved. I realized if I was going to survive, I'd have to do it myself. I wasn't fragile, I was focused. And from that day on, every late-night tutoring session, every side hustle, every dollar saved, wasn't just for survival. It was for escape. While Margot criticized my clothes and Lucas complained about his med school stress, I was the one keeping us afloat. I paid the rent. I paid the bills. I fed him. I clothed him. And all the while, Margot poured wine and praised her son for providing. They never knew that while I folded laundry, I was also building something they couldn't see, a plan. A future. My hands might have been doing dishes, but my mind was working spreadsheets, mapping every step. Because one day, I wasn't going to be there anymore. And when I left, I wasn't just going to walk out empty-handed. I was going to take everything they never saw coming. It started with a single sentence, casual, offhand, uttered by Lucas as he brushed his teeth one morning. "Yeah, we're thinking of putting the house in Mom's name, just to protect it, you know, in case anything ever happens between us." He said it like it was no big deal. Like my name never mattered. Like this house, the one I paid for, lived in, built a life inside, was just collateral, a backup plan in a game I didn't even know I was playing. I stood there, frozen, my toothbrush midair. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just nodded. But inside, something ignited. That night, Margot threw one of her famous family dinners, her version of a royal banquet. White tablecloths, $80 bottles of Pinot, everyone dressed like they were posing for a magazine no one reads. She loved putting on a show. I played my role perfectly, roast chicken in the oven, candles lit, napkins folded into pretentious little fans. Margot floated around like the queen she believed she was. Lucas was her silent little prince. Her minions, cousins, uncles, even his snobbish sister Vanessa, gathered around the table like we were in a play and I was just background noise. After dessert, Margot stood, raised her glass, and smiled. "To the future," she said. Then her eyes landed on me. One without unnecessary burdens. It was subtle. Meant to cut deep without leaving a visible wound. And the room laughed, politely, quietly, the kind of laugh rich people use when they want to insult you without getting their hands dirty. But I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I stood, raised my own glass, and said calmly, clearly, "Don't worry, Margot. I'll remove myself from your future." Silence. Forks paused midair. You could hear a pin drop. I sat my glass down, walked to the bedroom, and shut the door. That was the last time I ever played house in that house. I didn't scream. I didn't demand anything. I simply packed what mattered, my laptop, a few changes of clothes, and a locked file box I'd kept hidden behind old coats in the back of the closet. Before I left, I sat at my desk, opened our joint account, and stared at the number on the screen, $180,000. I knew the breakdown by heart, because I'd earned 80% of it. Every tutoring session, every budgeting spreadsheet, every late-night gig, I had built it. I took a deep breath, and with one click, I transferred all of it to my new business account. In my name. Under my LLC. No permission needed. I left $2.34 behind. Poetic, really. And then I walked out the front door, past the house I paid for, past the life they thought I was lucky to have, past the man who let his mother humiliate me. Not with tears. Not with rage. But with a smirk. Because I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I was leaving with everything. I didn't go to a friend's place. I didn't check into a hotel. I went to a tiny studio apartment downtown. One room. No couch. A mattress on the floor. No TV, no framed photos, no wine glasses clinking to someone else's toast. Just me, my laptop, and a silence that finally felt like freedom. The air smelled like dust and hope. And I breathed it in like oxygen. I sat at a folding table, wobbly, secondhand, and opened my laptop. I stared at the screen for a moment, hands trembling. Not from fear. From power. From the raw, electrifying thrill of being undeniably, irrevocably in control. That night, I launched something that would change everything. Savvy and Seen, financial coaching for women who do it all. It was simple at first. PDF guides, video lessons, one-on-one sessions. I didn't have a marketing team or ad budget. I had a story. A real one. And I knew that somewhere out there, other women were feeling invisible, like I once did. Women folding laundry while quietly holding entire households together. Women being told to be grateful while being taken for granted. So I started teaching them everything I'd taught myself in silence. How to budget with purpose. How to negotiate with confidence. How to say no without guilt. How to build something that belonged to them, and only them. And slowly, word spread. It started with one woman, a single mom in Florida who messaged me, panicked she'd lose her house. I helped her build a budget, lower her bills, and negotiate her rent. 2 weeks later, she messaged me again. "I'm staying. My kids don't have to move. Thank you. That's when I knew, this wasn't just business. It was revolution. My story, anonymous at first, was picked up by a women's finance blog. Then a podcast. Then another. My inbox lit up. Women wanted advice. Wanted help. Wanted to be seen. While Margot was clinking wine glasses, and Lucas was sobbing over his failed Step 2 exam, I was building an empire in silence. I reinvested every dollar. Built a brand. Hired a virtual assistant. Designed my first full course. And with every click, every lesson, every client, I became someone else. Not the woman they underestimated. Not the housemaid in disguise. Not the supporting character in their story. But the author of my own damn novel. By the time I hit 6 figures in revenue, I didn't feel proud. I felt ready. Ready to be seen. Ready to stop surviving. Ready to show the world exactly who I was, without asking for permission. And the best part? They still didn't see me coming. 9 months after walking away, I stood backstage at the Women's Financial Freedom Summit in Manhattan, waiting to take the stage in front of 1,000 women. I adjusted the lapel of my cream-colored power suit, the one Margot once called too flashy for a girl like you. My heels clicked against the polished floor like a countdown to reckoning. The lights were hot. The crowd was loud. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt seen. I felt powerful. I felt ready. But before I could even step into the spotlight, my phone buzzed. A single subject line from Lucas. Can we talk? I didn't open the message. I didn't need to. I already knew. He had failed his licensing exam twice. The house, my house, had been foreclosed. Margot had racked up medical bills. They were crumbling, together, in the wreckage of the empire they tried to build on my silence. And now, they were coming back. Not out of love. Out of need. They wanted me, the useless housemaid, to come save them. I walked onto that stage with my head high and a microphone in hand. Cameras flashed. A sea of women looked up at me like I was a lighthouse in the storm. And I told them the truth. Not the sugar-coated version. The real version. How I'd sacrificed my dreams for someone else's. How I'd been erased in the name of support. How financial abuse doesn't always look like control. It can look like joint accounts, shared dreams, and smiles that cost you everything. And I told them how I took it all back. The crowd erupted. A standing ovation. But just as I was stepping down from the stage, I saw her. Margot. In the back of the room. Alone. Her hair was thinner. Her designer coat hung off her shoulders like it didn't fit anymore. She looked smaller. Not because she had lost weight, but because she had lost power. She waited quietly while the crowd cleared. Then, like a ghost, she approached. Charlotte, her voice cracked. We were wrong about you. I was wrong. Please, help us. I didn't flinch. I didn't hug her. I turned to the mic, still hot, still recording, and said. This woman once called me a housemaid pretending to be a wife. Now she's asking me for help. Gasps rippled through the audience. I met Margot's eyes. I wasn't useless. I was just underestimated. She stood frozen. No words. Just a bitter swallow of her own pride. I turned away. Not in anger, but in peace. Because my opportunity wasn't just about money. It was about becoming untouchable. Not by revenge. But by reinvention. I didn't just escape the cage they built for me. I turned it into a stage. After that summit, things changed fast, faster than I ever imagined. That viral clip of me confronting Margot? It didn't just resonate, it exploded. Within 72 hours, it had millions of views. Women from across the country, and beyond, flooded my inbox with messages. You gave me the courage to leave. You reminded me of my worth. Thank you for showing me what's possible. Suddenly, I wasn't just a coach. I was a movement. I tripled my revenue. Hired a full-time team. Launched Savvy and Seen Global, an online platform connecting thousands of women to financial tools, empowerment resources, and one another. I created courses on money management, boundaries, negotiation, passive income, and emotional resilience. I built a private mentorship program for women recovering from financial abuse. I consulted with women's shelters, hosted virtual workshops, and eventually, started speaking on stages I once only dreamed of. I became unshakable, not because I never doubted myself, but because I learned to keep building anyway. But here's what no one saw. Behind all the wins, the accolades, the photo ops, there were nights I cried alone. Nights where I missed the version of myself who used to believe in happy endings. Who used to think love alone could fix everything. I had to grieve that woman. Let her go. Not because she was weak, but because she deserved peace, and I couldn't give it to her in that house. The world praised my strength, but my true power wasn't in taking back the money. It was in rewriting the story they tried to force me into. I stopped shrinking. Stopped apologizing for being ambitious, opinionated, or too much. I stopped saying yes to anything that cost me my peace. And I stopped explaining my worth to people who were committed to misunderstanding it. And in that space, finally, I started living. I bought myself a little cottage on the Oregon coast. Pale blue shutters. A wraparound porch. Wildflowers blooming through the fence. It wasn't big or flashy, but it was mine. Paid for in full. In my name. I'd wake up to the sound of waves instead of criticism. Brew my coffee without anyone complaining it wasn't hot enough. Sit by the window in the early light, laptop open, inbox full, heart quiet. Because peace doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it whispers. And I listened. My business became a beacon, not just for money, but for healing. For every woman told she's just a wife, just a mother, just anything, I showed them how to be more. How to own their time. Their income. Their narrative. Lucas and Margot? Last I heard, they were living in a rented condo on the outskirts of town. No license. No wealth. No plan. Still looking for someone to blame. But me? I don't look back anymore. Because I didn't just survive them. I outgrew them. They say closure comes from confrontation. That you need an apology, a confession, a final word. But I didn't need any of that. My closure came on a warm spring evening, with my feet buried in the sand and a glass of rose in my hand. The ocean stretched out before me, endless, unrushed. I watched the sun melt into the waves and realized. I didn't need revenge. I needed peace. And I had found it, not through them, but through me. I remembered that morning, Margot in her robe, calling me useless. Lucas beside her, silent and spineless. I remembered the burning shame, the tears, the aching loneliness that came from being unseen. But mostly, I remembered what came next. I turned insult into strategy. I turned betrayal into drive. I turned my pain into a business plan. They tried to erase me, and in doing so, they sharpened me. Now, I live in truth. I don't shrink for anyone. I don't bend so others can stand taller. I wake up each day knowing that every decision I make serves me, my peace, my power, my future. And when I speak to women around the world, whether in packed auditoriums or private coaching calls, I remind them. You are not too loud. You are not too emotional. You are not too ambitious. You are too underestimated. And that is your advantage. Because while they're laughing at you, dismissing you, underpaying you, overlooking you, you're learning. You're building. You're evolving. And one day, you'll outgrow the room they trapped you in. Just like I did. I don't talk to Lucas. I don't check his social media. I don't reread his messages begging for a second chance. What's done is done. And what was lost wasn't love. It was illusion. As for Margot, I heard she tried to file another lawsuit, but no lawyer would take her case. Her reputation didn't just crack. It crumbled. That video, the summit speech, it became required content in women's advocacy groups and financial literacy programs. She became a lesson. I became a legacy. Now, my team is global. My brand is thriving. I mentor young women from all walks of life, students, mothers, survivors, dreamers. I give them what I once needed, a blueprint, a backbone, and a belief that they are more than enough. Sometimes, I still walk along the coast at sunset. Wind in my hair. Sand beneath my feet. Silence around me, but never inside me. Because I'm no longer quiet. I'm calm. I'm certain. I'm free. And if there's one thing I've learned in all of this, it's this. You don't need anyone's permission to take up space. Especially not the space you earned. The most dangerous thing you can do to a woman is underestimate her. When people think you're weak, they lower their guard. When they think you're dependent, they stop watching your moves. And when they believe you're incapable, they hand you the perfect cover to quietly, powerfully rise. Charlotte Emerson's story isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming. It's proof that survival can turn into strategy, silence into strength, and invisibility into empire. She was never useless. She was underestimated, and that was her greatest weapon. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to prove your worth to those who refuse to see it. You build, you rise, and you leave. And when you do, you take back your power, not by tearing others down, but by becoming someone they can never reach again. Because underestimated women? They build empires in the shadows.